What's up, guys? Still just painting Maximus tonight. But I've been thinking about this game that it's been kicking around my brain for years and years. It's actually taken a bunch of different iterations at this point. But I think it was last year. I played a bunch of Crown and Skull, and it kind of like playing that really started kind of kicking off the urge to pick it back up and start thinking about it. And then I've just been working on so many projects, I haven't really had time to think about it. And right now I'm glazing over the purples. It's gonna be, we do a round of layering, a round of glazing, but I think we're getting close to the end on these purples. I'm pretty happy with how it's looking. It's got a way to go, but then I'm thinking about I gotta get the model done, I gotta actually finish the model. So probably start doing a little bit more of the cool non-metallic metal parts of it. But anyway, since I've just kind of been sitting here, like the layering and glazing process of the last couple of days, it almost gets to like a mind-numbing, like meditative kind of thing. And what I've been thinking about is I've been thinking about Mordheim a lot. One, because I want to play it again, but two, because like what makes Mordheim like the skirmish game? Like how much of it is nostalgia? How much of it was the dream team that came together to build it that's like not possible to come together anymore? And how much of it was just like the game's just a good this period. I mean, I think a big chunk of it is definitely the art and the vibes, and I think how a lot of us were kids, so it kind of has that mystic level. Like when I was a kid, if you were gonna play Warhammer, what you actually played was Mordheim, because nobody had full Warhammer armies, and Mordheim came out during 6th edition, which was like the rule set. I think there's a lot of reasons. The dream team, they came together to do it, all of the art, the rules. I think I'm definitely not like a Warhammer historian, but I think that was what kind of like kicked off the grim darkness that kind of everything else Games Workshop had ran away with. Fantasy wise, I mean. And I think that's probably not true at all. But to me as a kid, it definitely seemed like it. So I don't know if that's factually true, but it definitely seemed that way. And at this point, I haven't even played it in 15 years. Probably was the last time I played it. I think the last time I played it, I was in college, and I just got that glaze where I didn't want it, but that's okay. Gotta take a second to look about which one's a real water or not. But anyway, and I've been playing these solo games like Kingdom Death and a couple of other ones, and I don't know, I've been like trying all these different games out, and I've been trying to think about like what do I actually like from this game? Like what am I actually doing that I'm getting out of this that I like it? And things like need to get some white. Things like Rangers of Shadow Deep and like Necromancer, Frostgrave, like stuff like that. Even like Dungeons and Dragons, or like OSC really, because it's been a long time since I played actual Dungeons and Dragons. But I think kind of like what I want to try to make, and again, like I'm not. It's just gonna be me goofing around, making some rolls, and then dropping them as a PDF for people to try. Like it's not gonna be some crazy thing, and it'll probably still be a bit before I do anything. But I don't know. I think it's pretty boring to watch me just glaze over and over again. but then it's probably pretty boring watching me just ramble. Anyway, but like I kind of want to make a Mordham-esque skirmish game, and I want to. One, it's got to be soloable because I think for me to play it, it's got to be soloable at this point in time. Geez, I got one tiny bit of overlap on the white, and now it's causing me all sorts of problems. I think I just need to wait and let it dry, and definitely just need to let it dry. I needed to use the light that my phone is connected to see how I was looking, but I'm all over the place right now. All right, so I was thinking like how I want to abstract it enough to where there's not like the traditional, like I hate HP and I hate mana points, but I hate D&D magic, like their magic system of like 1 cast per day and like all that kind of thing. But I also don't like magic points. So now I was trying to think, how can I abstract all of this in a meaningful way? And I don't really like how like if you have 3 hit points, it's just a dice next to the model, and then eventually it goes to 0 and the model dies. But then I played Crown and Skull that uses an attrition system where your skills and your gear just kind of get checked off as you take damage, and there's no actual like HP. And I think like for a role-playing game where you can kind of police yourself and everybody's having fun at the table, it works very well because it certainly is like gameable. And I DM'd one group. I played a lot of Crown Skull solo. Or not a lot, but I played most of the time I played Crown Skull was solo. But I did DM a group or 2 groups, and both groups had multiple people who just tried to game the attrition system by, instead of like building out their character, just buying gear, like cheap gear to have that would get damaged, essentially because like trying to tank it with cheap gear, which doesn't actually work because then your character's useless. So you just get like, with a bunch of cheap busted gear that you can't really do anything with, so there's no progression, so they would just get mad for trying to game the system. But I think with a war game, you could very easily game the system like that. So I'm trying to like think of an attrition-based system that couldn't as easily be gamed. I mean, I know to some degree everything's gonna be gamed. If that's, and none of that gaming is necessarily bad either, but like a competitive meta wouldn't be the goal of it. And then I played, and so I came up with this idea of like knockdown, to where in combat you go from instead of having HP, you go from standing to knocked down to then like dead and removed, and then you could play with like ignoring the first time you'd be knocked down, or like effects to get you back up after being knocked down, or like ignore the first time you'd be removed from play from being just like all that kind of thing. And then I played Kingdom Death, and Kingdom Death obviously it's not an attrition system, but it's like the kind of like the HP, but their characters get knocked down and all that. Then it had a knockdown system, not in the same way that I would use it, but I actually don't like the idea of actually knocking your model down, and I didn't want to have that in my game. But then I started thinking, like, if you have stats on a character card, you could just turn the card sideways and that could be knocked down. But then that raises the question of like cards getting hit and the board getting moved around, and and then there's this, you could have knockdown tokens. And then there's a question of like, is this going to be a game where there's a shit ton of tokens on the table? Because for me, I either like having like no tokens, or like I like having so many tokens it's almost a token management game in itself, and that's kind of like what War Machine is. And I said I liked it, but now that I said it out loud, do I even actually like that? Because like, especially in a tournament setting, if you're messing around with all your tokens, you can clock. Look at how good that back looks. You can't tell because I don't have good lighting, but it looks good. And it gets to the point where you're just kind of like, table's full of tokens. Who cares? Like, could any of this been done without tokens? Are these tokens? And I think about the War Machine like elemental effect a lot when I was thinking about game design. And this is just going to be rambling about different things. I don't even know what the purpose is. I'm just painting. I'm talking, trying to stay awake through talking. But in War Machine, and I think maybe in older versions it mattered more. But in Mark IV, you have all these different elemental types, and then you have people who are immune to some elemental types, and some people who boost elemental types, and then you have attack and damage types, and they do different things. But like at the end of the day, in a game where the goal is to like eliminate a model versus it's not really possible to control a model or CC it, and I guess to some degree in War Machine you can maybe kind of control some models in some aspects, but it's definitely not like a core part of it. It's easier just to kill a model than it is to put a status effect on it, or like knock it down and then kill it. So anything, and this isn't just a War Machine problem, that's just like a game problem, where you can have as many effects as you want that do cool things, but at the end of the day, if none of them are as strategically viable or as good as just killing the model, like why bother with all these effects? And then how many different ways can you like apply one damage to a model, which is kind of what War Machine does. That's at least how it feels. I'm sure there's a lot of people watching who play War Machine and are like, it's more nuanced than that. But that's kind of how it felt to me, is like, why would I bother with all this when I can just make them pick the model up off the table? But so then I'm like, I'm just trying to like, at what point is the abstraction like too far? And can you say like, this mage is casting a lightning bolt, this one's casting a firebolt, but at the end of the day they both do some damage to your dude, and it's up to you to say, like, if you just have spell blast, and this is kind of what Crown Skull also does, is like there's a spell that's spell blast, and it's up to you as the player to narratively say like, oh well, this spell blast is a fireball, and that one's a lightning bolt, and that's okay too. But then I get like that level of abstraction might not be for everybody. So then it's like, how can you meaningfully provide player choice and customization and do it in a way that doesn't rely on hit points? And that's kind of where I'm at now. And then I think about, like, because again, I don't want to just make a basic skirmish game, because I feel like so many of them exist and there's so many cool ones. And again, I'm not like talking trash, because I love playing all the weird cool ones, but like at a certain point, how much are they actually different? And I don't want to reinvent the wheel and just put my name on it. I want to make something that's like cool and different and like tight. I think the biggest thing I miss about playing Magic is how tight the rule set was, and War Machine's rule set is pretty tight, and I like that about it. And then playing Pillage, the rule set is mostly tight, but it's like, because it's mostly a narrative game, like it seems like a lot of companies use the fact that something's a narrative game as an excuse to not have a tight rule set, which I don't think is necessarily true. And then I'm just glazing, showing off my bald head. But you get to this point where like I wanted to make something cool and it's like worth differentiating itself, but I don't want it to be different just to be different. I don't want it to be a pain in the ass. So then I think like I want it to be super lightweight and super immersive. And then I want to have campaign play that is meaningful and doesn't just boil down to like rolling on a table after you play, kind of admiring, to where there's a meaningful character progression after the game, because I think that's really cool too. And I really loved playing Frostgrave, but even like the progression under Frostgrave, like I didn't really feel like it was too meaty. It wasn't like really like I was digging my teeth in to like what could be. And the question that I keep trying to answer, and I just keep wording differently, is like, how do you have campaign progression that equates more to just random dice tables? So then I'm like, what if there's, so if we solved the HP kind of, right? You need HP, you need to be able to move, you need to be able to attack, or kind of the basic things of a skirmish war game. And then I think about like, maybe what about doing like non-lethal game, which I think could be interesting. Especially I think that would lend itself really well to a lot of the miniatures that I want to paint, because they're more of kind of like grim, whimsical, like they're grim, dark, just weird looking minis. And I think like, could supernatural entities meaningfully kill each other in their home world? And I was thinking about that a lot, like having like the fairy, for lack of terms, like doing mischief to each other, and like that. I don't know. That's a thought I should probably pursue, because I think that could be cool eventually. But I'm just thinking like, you have slow, average, fast movement, and that's easy to do. You have, I think like I want to do cool attacks, so I got to think the HP system down and the attrition system down, because I hate how Age of Sigmar and 40k does it, and I guess wartime technically. How you like rolling to hit, and then you roll the damage, and then they roll in to save. I think that sucks. I really like how Infinity does it. I think that system's pretty cool, where it's like face-to-face rolls or non-face-to-face rolls. I like Pillage too, because all the attacks happen simultaneously, so you're still like, might not just totally get yeeted off the table. And then I think like, what should I do next? This is where we're at. It's too dark for you to tell, but everything looked crazy, and now I don't really know how to make this look good to where you can tell what's going on. Maybe the shoes. You're starting to see the difference in layers, but so I'm just thinking about this game that is probably never ever going to actually exist, and how to overcome these problems of HP without hit points. But I think I'm getting close to it. I'm still, obviously I can't even really form a coherent thought about how to get through it, but I think I'm getting close. And forming a coherent thought will come next. But today I'm just using the YouTube channel to keep myself accountable and painting every day. And probably not very entertaining. But I think I want to start doing some live streams, but I got to think about the times. It'd probably be maybe like a lunchtime stream for people in the East Coast of America. I think that would be kind of cool. Or like a late afternoon kind of thing. Oh man, what was I talking about? I think I gotta stop. I gotta go get to some sleepy times. But if there's one coherent thought I could leave you with, it is use a bigger brush than you think you need when you're painting tiny spaces. Because if you're using a tiny little brush, you're gonna have to keep hitting it. But if you got a big brush, like this is a 00, or no, this is a 1. There's so much, it holds so much paint, but it has to be good. Like, it still comes to a very sharp point, but it's got enough paint in it that I don't have to keep hitting the same spot to get the paint where I want it. So if you hung out, that's today's tip. I guess I'll just show you where we're at. So the purple is a lot more subtle than I can get it to look. But we're like 3 or 4 rounds of glazing and layering into the purple. And the whites, I've done a lot of work on the whites too. Okay, see you tomorrow.